In a quiet French town, a well-loved family disappears overnight. No warning, no struggle, just silence. Days later, 5 bodies are found buried in their backyard. But the father, he's gone. No note, no goodbye, just vanished. This isn't just a murder mystery. This is one of the greatest unsolved disappearances in modern history.
In the quiet, cathedral-lined streets of Nantes, France, lived a family that seemed picture-perfect, at least on the surface. The Dupont de Ligonnès family was well known, not for scandals or drama, but for being decent, private, and respectable. They lived in a modest townhouse in a peaceful neighborhood. Nothing about them raised suspicion, until everything did. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès, the father, came from aristocratic roots. Though his noble title no longer carried the wealth it once did, Xavier held on to his status with quiet pride. He was articulate, educated, and charming. Friends described him as refined and thoughtful, a man who loved classical music, philosophy, and long conversations about life. He had studied in the United States, spoke fluent English, and appeared cultured and intelligent. He married Agnès Hodanger in the early 1990s. She was a devout Catholic, reserved, and deeply committed to her role as a mother and teacher. Agnès worked at a private Catholic school and kept her life structured, clean, and spiritual. She prayed often, she took care of the children, and she rarely questioned her husband's decisions. Together, they had 4 children: Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit. Arthur was Agnès' son from a previous relationship, but Xavier treated him like his own. He was quiet and intellectual, studying at a university in Angers. Thomas, 18, was passionate about music and had a close bond with Xavier. They often dined out together. Anne, the only daughter, was 16 and loved acting. She was described as shy but sweet. And Benoit, just 13, was a cheerful boy who played video games and walked the family dog around the neighborhood. From the outside, their life seemed structured and normal. The kids attended private schools. The family went to church regularly. They took vacations. Dinners were shared at home. Birthdays were celebrated. Their social media showed smiling faces, holiday cards, and home-cooked meals. But underneath that perfect image, things were quietly falling apart. Xavier's professional life was a mess. He jumped from one failed business idea to another, import-export ventures, advertising, consulting, none of them successful. Financially, the family was drowning. Xavier borrowed money from friends, took loans he couldn't repay, and even asked the nanny for a few €100. Yet somehow, he managed to keep the illusion of stability alive. He dressed well, spoke confidently, and acted like everything was fine. But in private, Xavier was crumbling. He became distant from Agnès, cold. She confided to an online Christian forum that their marriage was strained, that Xavier no longer showed affection, and that she felt like a ghost in her own home. She sensed something was wrong, deeply wrong, but she couldn't explain it. By early 2011, Xavier had begun researching how to kill people, specifically, how to drug them, shoot them, and bury them without being noticed. He looked up Catholic funeral rites and the effects of sleeping pills. He visited shooting ranges. He quietly purchased a rifle, and later, a silencer. No one knew. Not his wife, not his children, not his friends. But while the plan was forming in his mind, he was already preparing the cover story. He told friends and relatives that he had been recruited by the American DEA to infiltrate a drug ring operating in France. It sounded absurd, but Xavier told it with such conviction that some people believed him. He said the whole family would be relocated under a witness protection program, and that they would disappear for a while. No phones, no contact. He warned everyone not to ask questions. In March and April, small signs began to surface. Xavier started withdrawing cash in small amounts. He canceled his children's school enrollment, citing a move to Australia. He told Arthur to quit his job. He sent emails to his sister, his brother-in-law, and a few friends, saying they should pray for him and that he loved them. Then, silence. The windows of the house were shut tight. The dog stopped barking. The mail piled up. One by one, messages were sent from the family, saying they had moved, but something felt off. No one had actually seen them leave. Still, Xavier remained calm. He was seen at restaurants, checking into hotels, withdrawing money. He didn't run, not yet. It was as if he believed the plan was working, that no one would ask too many questions. For days, he moved through life as if nothing had happened. But inside that quiet home in Nantes, something unthinkable had taken place. And soon, the truth would begin to surface. Because this wasn't a story of a family moving abroad. It was a story of cold calculation, of secrets buried both metaphorically and literally. And the man at the center of it all, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès, was about to vanish into thin air. April 11th, 2011. A Monday. The start of an ordinary spring week in Nantes. Except inside the townhouse at 55 Boulevard Robert Schumann, something felt off. The shutters had been closed for days. The mailbox was overflowing. No one had seen the family, not the kids, not Agnès, not Xavier. At first, people weren't too concerned. Families go on trips. Sometimes they forget to tell their neighbors. But it didn't take long before curiosity turned into unease, and unease into suspicion. By April 13th, the school where Agnès taught started to worry. She hadn't shown up. No phone calls, no explanation. The children were absent from their schools as well. Teachers called, no answer. Friends tried to stop by the house. The doorbell rang and rang, nothing. The silence was beginning to scream. Then came the letters. Multiple family members and close friends received handwritten letters, postmarked from Xavier himself. Each letter told the same story. The family was in danger. Xavier claimed he had been recruited by the United States Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, and was now involved in a covert international mission to dismantle a drug trafficking network in France. Because of the danger, he wrote, he and his entire family had to disappear. They were being relocated to the United States under witness protection. No phone calls, no emails, no visits. He asked everyone to respect their privacy and not to investigate further. Some believed it, at least for a while. Xavier was persuasive, eloquent, calm. The idea seemed outrageous, but then again, why would he lie? Others, though, were skeptical. Why would the DEA recruit a middle-aged French businessman with no background in law enforcement? Why would they relocate an entire family, including children, without a trace? And most of all, why was Agnès' phone still going straight to voicemail? Around the same time, Xavier was spotted in various hotels across southern France. Roquebrune-sur-Argence, La Seine-sur-Mer, and then Draguignan. He was alone, quiet, distant. He used his real name to check in. He withdrew cash from ATMs, never large sums, just enough to sustain himself. He traveled with few belongings, stayed 1 or 2 nights at a time, then moved on. Surveillance cameras later captured his calm demeanor. There was no sign of panic, no disguise, no attempt to hide. Meanwhile, back in Nantes, the police had finally entered the family home. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. The furniture was clean, the beds were made, toothbrushes were in the bathroom, dishes were in the sink. But something was wrong. The family car was parked nearby, unused. The family dog, Leon, was gone. And the entire place had an eerie, frozen-in-time feeling, as if everyone had suddenly disappeared in the middle of living. Investigators found the computers wiped, family photos removed from the walls, mattresses missing, and then, the biggest clue, a note on the mailbox that read, "Return all mail to sender." Still, there were no signs of violence, no blood, no forced entry, no struggle. It was as if the family had simply vanished. But the police kept digging. 4 days after the initial search, investigators returned to the house, this time with cadaver dogs. They searched the garage, the yard, the garden. Nothing. Then, under the porch at the back of the house, they noticed something strange. The concrete looked newer. It had been recently poured and smoothed over. They began to dig. On April 21st, 2011, 10 days after the family was last seen, they discovered a horrifying scene. Underneath the terrace, wrapped in blankets, trash bags, and layers of quicklime, were the bodies of Agnès and her 4 children. Each had been carefully laid side by side as if put to rest. Next to them, buried in the same grave, was Leon, the family dog. Each of the victims had been shot execution-style with a .22 rifle. They had also been drugged beforehand, likely with sleeping pills crushed into their food or drinks. No one had fought back. No one had screamed. Xavier had taken his time, planned it, cleaned up, and buried them one by one. Now, the illusion was shattered. This wasn't a story about witness protection. It wasn't about espionage. It was about murder. Cold, calculated, methodical murder. The prime suspect? Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès, the father, the husband, the man who claimed he was protecting his family, had destroyed them. But he was gone. Now officially the most wanted man in France, an international manhunt began. Police followed his trail across the south of France. He had checked into a budget hotel in Roquebrune-sur-Argens on April 14th. Surveillance footage caught him walking calmly to his room, carrying a long bag, believed to be the rifle used in the killings. On April 15th, he checked out, left the hotel on foot, walked out of frame, and was never seen again. That's it. No sightings, no bank activity, no cell phone signal. He vanished completely, like smoke in the wind. Police scoured forests, caves, abandoned buildings, and hiking trails around southern France. Some believed he had taken his own life in the wilderness. Others believed he had help. Maybe someone drove him out of the country. There were rumors he fled to Italy, to Switzerland, even to Latin America. None were confirmed. Over the years, dozens of sightings were reported. A man looking like Xavier was seen in a monastery. Another was caught on camera in Glasgow, Scotland. In 2019, a man was arrested in Scotland after being mistaken for Xavier. DNA later proved it wasn't him. The mystery only deepened. But the most chilling part? No suicide note was ever found. No message of remorse. No farewell. Only that strange letter claiming he was saving his family. Psychologists later speculated that Xavier may have been experiencing a form of narcissistic collapse, unable to accept his financial ruin, obsessed with his public image, and convinced that death was the only way to preserve his family's dignity. Others believe it was about control. He couldn't control his failing career. He couldn't control his collapsing status. But he could control how the story ended, and so he wrote the final chapter, on his own terms. To this day, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès remains one of the most wanted fugitives in the world. His face is still on Interpol's Red Notice. His name still haunts French media. His story, equal parts tragedy, mystery, and horror, continues to fascinate the public. Because the question still echoes, how does a father murder his entire family and then simply disappear? More than a decade has passed. No new trace, no confession, no body, and no answers. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès has become a ghost, not just to the police, but to his own country. His disappearance has fueled documentaries, books, conspiracy theories, Reddit threads, and late-night news debates. Every once in a while, a new tip surfaces. A man matching his profile is spotted in Chicago, or reported working in a cafe in Cyprus. Some claim he's hiding in South America under a false identity. Others say he's long dead, his body rotting somewhere in the wilderness of southern France, buried in a place no one would ever find. But none of it has ever been confirmed. The mystery lives on. In the years following the murders, the French authorities continued to search. They re-examined all surveillance footage, retraced every step he took. Dogs, drones, helicopters, hundreds of officers combed the countryside around Roquebrune-sur-Argens, where Xavier was last seen. They found nothing. In 2013, a new theory emerged, that Xavier may have taken refuge in a monastery. Several were investigated. One monk even claimed to have seen him, that a mysterious man had joined the monastery under a new name and lived there for months before vanishing again. The theory was never proven. Then came 2019, 8 years after the murders. French police announced that Xavier had finally been caught. A man flying from Paris to Glasgow was arrested. He looked like Xavier. He had a fake passport. Fingerprints seemed to match. For 24 hours, the media exploded. Headlines screamed, "Xavier found." But DNA tests came back. It wasn't him. Another dead end. Another false hope. And so the question remains, where is he? Is he hiding in plain sight, living a second life under a stolen name? Or did he end his life in the hills, his bones hidden in some crevice, his story forever unfinished? Some believe the answer lies in his personality. Xavier was meticulous, calculated, proud. He hated failure. He obsessed over legacy. If he planned his escape the way he planned the murders, maybe he really did succeed. Others think he wanted to disappear, not just from the law, but from the world. That the murders were not just a crime, but a performance. A final act of control over a life he could no longer manage. To this day, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès remains the prime suspect in the murder of his wife and 4 children. He is wanted internationally. His face is on Interpol's most wanted list. But the truth? The truth might never come. And perhaps that's what makes this case so haunting. Not just the horror of the act, not just the grief left behind, but the silence. The silence of a man who vanished without a trace, and the silence of a world still waiting to understand why.